Welcome to the Angular Plus Show, where app developers of all kinds share their insights and experiences. Let's get started.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Angular Plus Show. My name is Brian, and I am joined here by Lara and Jay, and we have an excellent guest for you today. Today, we're going to be talking about software engineering management and kind of the road towards that and how that works. And so I'm sure many of you are very interested in that if you're looking to pursue that as a career and try to better understand how that works. But before we get into that with our guest, Jay, welcome back to the show. It's good to have you, man.
It's really good to be back. This is an awesome first episode for me back. First, because I love Spivey and I haven't seen him since ng-conf last year, and I won't be going this year. But then also, I feel like I kind of need to learn about what this whole engineering leadership thingy is, as I'm technically one of those at my company. So I
think
feel
you
like
are. Aren't you a CTO?
I think CTO
is in your title,
but don't tell anybody.
Okay. And we're also joined by Lara. How are you, Lara? How are things going?
I'm good. I'm surviving. I'm like right in the middle of conference season. So like I get back from a conference and then I like work for a few days and then I go to another one and then I work for a few more days and then I go to another one and I just want to sleep in my own bed. So I'm getting to the end of that. So.
It's interesting because we're talking about like career stuff a little bit today. And I'm just curious, like, Lara, have you ever thought about going into DevRel?
DevRel would make sense for me.
Throwing it out there.
Then instead of writing talks at midnight when I'm so sleepy, I could be writing them during the day and getting paid to do it.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference there, right? So, but I don't know if Cisco has a need for DevRel, but anyways,
my guess is no.
I guess it's not, but
not about Angular, probably. Like maybe I'm sure they have people that are like,
oh, I'm sure they do.
Go out and use buy our stuff, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, especially like large conferences, networking conferences, or whatever kind of those sides of things. Good to have you here. Thank you both for joining us today, and welcome to our guests. Today we are joined by James Spivey, and we're just excited to have you back on the show. I know you've been on the show many times, and been a staple here in the Angular community. And so go ahead and introduce yourself to the listener and we'll kick this thing off.
Yes, hello everyone. I am Spivey. I go by Spivey. It's the cost of managing too many Jameses on one team. It just kind of stuck. So I am happy to be back. This is my second episode, so not many, but very excited to be here with some of my favorite Angular folks. I am the Director of Engineering for Capital One in a program called CreditWise. So if you have not signed up for CreditWise, you should. We are in both the United States and Canada. It's awesome. It's free. It tells you all about your credit. We just migrated to FICO, which is what all of the major groups use to judge you on your credit. So there's a lot of value there for you if you want to go sign up for that. But yes, happy to be here. Happy to chat management. Been a director for quite a while and was a CTO competing with Brian on how awesome CTOs could be.
Long time ago.
Chat management.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about, before we get into the tech, or before we get into the full discussion around this, tell us a little bit about CreditWise and how it's built, if you can, anyways. Is it an Angular app? Is it kind of, what are you guys building over there?
Yeah, so we are an Angular app. We just got to version 20. Pretty happy about that.
Congrats.
Nice to do a large scale migration there. Can't get too much in the back end, but it's just a pretty large mix of Java and Python type things.
Sure.
Full stack teams and a lot of native code too for our mobile experiences. And then we have some tie-ins back to the sort of main Capital One app, which is what a lot of folks know, especially in the Angular community. I believe it's one of the largest Angular repositories. It's
got to be pretty close. Yeah.
So we work a lot with Angular folks, with NX folks, with all kinds of folks doing a lot of that work. So we at CreditWise are fairly small. We're almost like a little startup inside of Capital One. So it's kind of a fun world to be in, where you're in this very large supporting bank, but you get a lot of autonomy in this smaller group. We have 60 million users, so we're by no means a small product.
Yeah.
So we have quite a lot of people.
Like that just, I don't even know that that can't be true.
Wait, it definitely is, because
people can have that many users. Is that true?
It is a free. I mean, it's a free product, right? I mean, it's like I imagine like a like marketing, top of funnel, like sign up, get a free credit report, kind of see where things are, and then hopefully use Capital One as part of your crediting, well, whether that's credit card or loans or whatever, right?
I
So
actually think this is a lot of the vision about Capital One being about banking for good. So one of our slogan is change banking for good. And
yeah,
Capital One started credit-wise a very, very long time ago with the whole sole
yeah,
purpose of just giving away the credit report, helping people better
yeah,
understand their credit and what it
yeah,
takes to improve their credit. One of the projects we're
yeah,
working right now is actually helping people build credit goals so that they can say, hey, I want to get to here so I can buy a house. And
Yep.
here's the
yes,
steps that you can take to get to those things. So a lot of it's about helping our customers, and we're really proud of that, right? We are not an ad heavy experience. It's not about selling you Capital One
mm,
stuff. It truly is about trying to help you understand credit and how to grow your credit and improve your credit, or just monitor your credit. We have
Yeah,
plenty of
mhm,
features
protect your
that come just to
credit.
kind of keep an eye on things and make sure, like we have dark
mhm,
web alertings. So if your information
mhm,
gets out there, your social security will alert you on those things. You
mhm.
can keep an eye on if your score's going up and going down, all that sort of stuff. You can just read your credit report, which harder to do these days than it looks sometimes. And so
Yeah.
we do that.
Well, and like I know when I was buying a house, right before there was some leak that had happened, and pretty much everyone that has a pulse got their data leaked. And so people were advising to freeze your credit, and I'm like, oh, that's going to be super hard. And I'm like, oh wait, no, it's actually like it's really easy. And then of course, we're like, and then we're gonna buy a house. I'm like, oh, you can thaw it for like a day, and I did not. That is stuff that like that used to give me a lot of anxiety. So these resources, I think, like CreditWise that are coming out are super useful to the consumer because it is something that gives people massive anxiety because it's hard to understand it if you don't do it every day. So
Yeah, agreed.
It's a challenging thing, and we are trying to give a lot of that education away for free. And one of the exciting things is we're actually now moving beyond credits. We're actually moving now into broader financial management and taking those same
Mm,
principles, helping you manage your finances, manage your budget, manage your spend, manage your
mm,
credit cards,
Nice.
goals, retirement, all of those sorts of things are on the table for where we would like to go.
nice,
mm.
excellent.
That's really cool, man.
Exciting time
That's
to
really
be in
cool.
Angular's
CreditWise
gonna
right now.
help you do it. Angular is the takeaway I got from that is Angular is awesome. So
Very much so.
All right, so Spivey, you were an individual contributor, kind of you came from a very strong engineering role. I know that you, man, I don't know your full resume, but I remember when we met back in Denver, I think you were Dish. Was it Dish or what's the other?
Charter. I
Uh,
worked for Charter for a while.
Charter.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I know you were doing a lot of engineering, and you were doing, a lot of that historically. And eventually, you started to make a like kind of a migration or move towards kind of the management side, or the dark side, or whatever we want to call it. So, what made you? I'm kidding, obviously. Like, what was the motivation there? Were you thinking like, I mean, let's be honest. Like, I think some people look at that and they say, okay, I can kind of continue on this track in the engineering side of things. I kind of work my way up into like, staff engineer, principal engineer, whatever that is, architect type of thing. And then other folks kind of say, hey, I'm really curious about doing more of the organizational style, kind of managing people. I have a great background. I love it when somebody like yourself, who is managing engineers, was an engineer and understands engineering, understands a lot of the technology. Maybe not like the nuances of the technology, perhaps, but certainly has a good appreciation for how things work and how to manage that and help move things along. So what was your motivation around that? Was it primarily like, I got to choose A or B, or were you looking at, let's be honest, were you looking at salaries, and were you looking at income and saying, oh, this is the way that I can make more money? Or kind of was it a combination? You just really wanted to work with more with people and less with tech. Yeah, I'm kind of curious kind of what your story was.
Well, first, I still think I know the nuance fairly well. Thank you very much. I try to stay
That's
on the
great.
pulse.
Many managers, I mean, many
Try
folks
not to
don't, right?
disconnect myself. I was telling
So-
these two, I
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
submitted a PR last
Yeah.
week. So,
Oh, good for you.
keeping my
For
team
you.
on their toes.
Having
That's great. I
reported
love that.
directly to Spivey for like 3 years, I can confirm that he is above average, like way above the average manager technical prowess. Because there were many times where we'd be like, what about this? And he's like, yeah, no, that is gonna be yep, no, you don't want to do that, and here's why. So
Yeah.
But yeah, to get to your question, so it is an interesting one because I've had this conversation a lot with folks.
Yeah.
These days it's great because what you're talking about, being able to really take the IC track really far.
Yeah.
When I was coming up through engineering, because I've been doing this for so long, that really wasn't a thing.
Wasn't an
I didn't
option.
really
Yeah, many
develop the
times.
IC route until fairly
Yeah.
recently. I think that's
Yeah. Agreed.
maybe the last decade or so they've sort of
I
made
think
that
I was going to say
option.
about 10. I remember Google kind of said, we're not going to force
Yeah.
people into management. Like we're going to still have a full engineering organization and engineers all the way up to the top or nearly
Yeah.
to the top, which is unique.
Although in a way I tripped into it for a couple of reasons. And it actually wasn't because of the forcing of a management track. So
Okay.
I started at junior engineer, fresh out of college, and went through senior, made it to architect. I worked for a large consultancy firm as an architect there, servicing government clients and large scale projects. And from there, I kind of had this opportunity to go, I guess, do something crazy, which was start a company. I met a business partner and we had these ideas, and he said, "I want you to be the CTO." And I was like, heck yeah, I'm in for this insanity. And so I kind of tripped into it from that route, not so much of like I had to be a manager, but like I wanted to go try my own thing. Everybody back then thought they could be the CTO of something. Only a couple like Jay and yourself really truly pull it off. 'Cause I only lasted, I think, 3 or 4 years before we exited. But I will say a big part of the reason that I entered people management, and I've sort of talked about this before, is that I got very frustrated with leadership that didn't listen to engineers. And I got very tired of, directors and whatever managers, and they would just kind of like yell at you from the top, sit in their office. You wouldn't hear from them. They didn't lead from the front. And you felt like they were making these grave mistakes that imperiled the success of a project or success of your ability to deliver. And when it went wrong, then they would just yell at you, and you're like, I've been trying to tell you it's going to go wrong for months now. And so I said to myself that I can do it differently, and I can be a different type of leader, and I can be one that engineers can engage with. I've been in the pits. I've seen how this stuff goes wrong. I've been through the muck. I have had the sleepless nights. I have been on call 24/7. I've worked 48 hours straight. Like I know what it's like to be on the wrong side of those bad decisions. And so I've always worked really hard ever since that moment to not be that type of leader. And I think that's what's really kept me engaged with it, because I really, really enjoy the people aspect of being an engineering leader. I mean, I love writing code, and that's why I try to keep doing it occasionally, just to keep my skills sharp and sort of keep fresh on what's changing. This industry changes so fast. If you're not doing those things, having hobby projects, it's hard to keep up. But the people aspect is one of those things that I don't know that I can get rid of. I don't know I could go back to just being an IC. I love it too much.
There's like one thing I wanted to, that I like what you said, that there was actually an article, I'm trying to find it, I'll see if I can get it in the show notes, but basically somebody wrote an article about why do I keep losing my devs, and it's because when you have managers that are constantly not listening to the devs, they just check
They'll
out.
leave.
Yeah, like you show up for a paycheck, you get the work done, and when somebody tells you to do something that makes no sense, you say, all right, we'll see what happens. And then when bad things happen, you say, well, that's what we said would happen, but here we are. And it's demoralizing for the teams it's demoralizing to be writing code that is going to fail, or that you're going to.
Out.
Yeah, it burns you out. Especially when you're like, I know I'm just going to delete this in a month. Why do I want to write this? Like, why am I taking the time to do this? Because I'm going to be deleting it, or I'm going to be cleaning this up. Like next year, I'm going to spend all year fixing this. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
the one thing I've
least
learned
in those situations, the other thing I see not happening a lot is, at least, sometimes those are situations you can't avoid.
Yeah.
But at least if you have a manager that takes the time to explain why those decisions are being made, is open to alternatives, but is explaining their intention and what they're having to do. Maybe it's their hands forced, or there's something you don't see because you don't sit in the, in a higher level. At least doing those things, like those, it's just entry level you should be doing. And so many leaders don't do it. And it's really, to me, it's the fundamentals of explaining yourself so that people can read what you're thinking and understand, and then they're more inclined to actually want to go follow you to do that thing. And if not,
Well,
you then just burn them out.
It also builds trust because it feels good to be
exactly.
treated like an adult. Like I'm a freaking adult. Like I'm not, getting roller skates at the skate counter anymore. Like I'm
That's what I
doing
was
an
gonna say.
yeah.
Yeah. It's a two-way street between the leadership and the ICs, right? Like the more you trust that your team is there for the right reasons and that you trust that your team is gonna execute correctly, then you let them do that and then they deliver. And if they don't deliver, that's a whole different conversation, obviously, right? But like if you're
Right.
gonna trust that your team is like my team, I can just give them entire projects and then like it'll get done in a week or two and we're golden, everyone's happy, right? That builds trust. So when all those times that inevitably come up, like we had a whole tax issue come up recently at Trellis, and we're like, cool, we just have to drop everything and get this done as quickly as possible, right? Like, yeah, we're still gonna do it the right way, but we just have to absolutely hammer through this project kind of thing, right? Like everybody has trust in you that this isn't just going to be the norm all the time, right? So they're like, okay, and then they like get behind the project, like, okay, let's like crush this out, like let's do it, let's get it done, kind of thing, right? And it's a two-way street. Yeah, you're the quote unquote leader of the team, right? But you're all the team, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not just telling them what to do all the time. That's not how it works, right?
Yeah.
Like I actually want them to tell me how they're going to do the work that I need them to do. I don't want to tell them how to do
bottoms up
I don't
engineering.
want to tell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Like let them do that. They're better at it than me. I'm not great at building production systems. I'm not highly, highly detailed and organized and stuff like that. But I have that high level vision of it. So it's like, okay, guys, here's what we need. And then they're going to go and do it the right way. And I trust that they're going to do it the right way.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, even as a tech lead, whenever if you meet your team for the first time or onboard a new member, I always take the time to say, yes, I'm the tech lead and I'm going to do my best to set the technical direction. But if you disagree with me, I want you to tell me. If you have a better idea, I want you to tell me. I don't care if you're an intern. I don't care if you're mid-level. I don't care if you're senior. Like I literally can't know everything. I am not the expert on everything. Like I love it when I have somebody on my team that's like, you know what I really geek out about? TypeScript. I'm like, sweet. You can solve all my TypeScript problems because
you are now the TypeScript person.
Yeah, like I don't love it. And that's the thing about teams. Like, why would you have a team if all you have are people that you have to micromanage all the time? That sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, like my nightmare. I don't want to micromanage people. I don't like managing people enough. I like leading people, but I sure don't like managing people.
Right, exactly. Exactly. I did find the article, so that will be in the show notes. So
3 steps I took to stop losing my best people. Sweet.
Yes.
I'm gonna go read that.
Yeah. Like sometimes, like depending on what your situation is, it might make you cry because you're like, oh no, somebody really understands me.
So Spivey, I'm curious. So you talked a little bit about how you got into engineering management. For those that are listening on the call that are probably considering kind of making that career transition towards that, do you have any recommendations for folks kind of to get started towards that path? So, like, sure, they can just go start looking on LinkedIn for jobs. But what is there like something before that? Like, are there any sort of resources or even Laura yourself, like you're the team lead, right? So you're kind of moving towards that and stuff like that. But I'm curious, Spivey, kind of how you. I think so. I don't know. I'm curious, Spivey, how you kind of think about like, yeah, if you've got somebody, maybe you're in a one-on-one with a bright engineer, and they come in, they're like, hey, I'm really curious in like how I like you're a great leader, Spivey. I want to be a leader like you. How do I get started towards that? Like, what are some recommendations or some thoughts that you have around that?
Throw yourself in the deep end and start a company.
Yeah, that was one way of doing it. I'm not sure I advise that
too much.
That might be too far of the pendulum.
It was a very different time in engineering back then, so maybe don't go do that. So I have definitely, in my role as a director, had these conversations about what it's sort of moving into being a people.
I would expect you have.
Helping folks get there.
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of it, my first bit of advice is always to be intentional about it, right? Don't go be a manager just because some manager said you should be a people manager.
Yeah.
That's a fast way for failure because you don't fully know what it takes. And people management is a very, very different skill. You could be the world's best engineer and the worst people manager because they are such different skills. And much like engineering, you're never done learning this side of house either. Like I've been doing this for almost a decade, and every new person I meet is completely and utterly different than the person next to them. And it's a different set of problems. It's a different thing you want to help them with. It's a different thing you coach them on. They've got different needs, different challenges, different history. They could be different age groups, right? I'm getting old, so I'm starting to manage folks that are like, what were the 80s and 90s? That's weird. You're
You
like,
were born in the 1900s?
So you're explaining like movie references that they've never heard of, and you're just like, my gray hair just keeps getting thicker and thicker. But it's a never-ending skill, and so the first step to sort of doing that is saying, okay, I want to be intentional about this, and much like you do to being an engineer, is you go start learning about it. Like it's very easy to Google what are the biggest mistakes people leaders make, and it doesn't even have to be software engineering. They're pretty straightforward ones defined that are pretty clear about like how you treat people.
Yeah.
And that's the fun thing about it, especially since we all have a history of either really good or really bad managers or ones in between. You get to have your own voice that you tailor off of that. I manage lots of managers, and I really tried to not have it be Spivey's voice, but their voice with their teams, because they've got their own history and experiences. There are obviously things I want and hope for, and then there's things that I will help teach them. But every team should have their own voice and their own way of doing things. And so finding your voice and who you want to be as a people leader is that first step of like, this is what I'm going to stand for. This is what I'm going to believe in. And this is how I'm going to be. And then being obsessive about learning how to be better at it. So I can't even tell you how many people leadership books I have on my Kindle right now. I mean, it's crazy. I read them constantly. And every time I'm taking furious notes about what they think worked well and didn't work well for them. Simon Sinek and Knowing Your Why. Like, I love that sort of
it's
the
a good
why
book.
aspect of things, right? Like,
he's a good dude.
Yeah. Have you read Good to Great?
Yeah, Good to Great's a good one. It's delivering happiness. Wildly different. It's the guy who started Zappos. Very challenged individual.
Okay.
And it's a very wild book, right? I probably wouldn't necessarily lead the same way. Maybe a little HR nightmare in there somewhere. But like, he also created this culture that was pretty definably amazing. And so there's a lot of that. Like I think for me, like, spend time learning about culture and how to build team culture.
Yeah.
Because
really
I've argued
important.
a lot about that's one of the most critical things to the success of health of an org is the culture that you create. I literally gave a whole talk to a room full of CTOs where I blamed them for tech burnout. And I said it's because they weren't building the right culture in their company.
I saw that talk. That was the CTO connection stuff that Peter Bell was doing years back, right? Yeah. That was great. Yeah. And that was a great organization.
It's a nerve-wracking time to stand in a large room of people like that who are industry titans to a degree and go like, it's your fault that you're burning your people out. At the same time, I wasn't lying.
No, you're not lying. No. And it's amazing what, like, people might say, oh, it's all this organizational churn that's getting people to leave, or, oh, it's all the like tight deadlines. It's amazing what your teams can weather when you have good leadership. Like, it makes it so much easier to show up and keep doing the job because you trust your team and you trust your leadership. And, because I don't know. I don't think I've ever worked at any company and been like, everything here is awesome. This is the best place I've ever been. There are no problems. Like, I don't have like that one person I got to deal with that's a giant pain in the ass. Like, I've never had that situation, but I have had different kinds of leaders. And the leadership can help you handle whatever the company's weird problems are that come at you. So
I'm hoping to maybe tack a little bit here. So we've talked a lot about culture, and I think there's a lot of value to that. I want to ask you maybe some like hard-hitting questions that are maybe a little more like on the ground. So maybe here's a interesting question that I'd love to get your take on, Spivey. So you're doing sprint planning with your team, or you're kind of overseeing some like a chunk of work. How do you deal with scope? Like, how do you deal with scope and timelines and that kind of thing? What are some things that you deal, like, I'm sure you deal with this on a day-to-day basis in Cap One, and I'm sure you have it in many of your past jobs. But like, okay, we've got a deadline, well, whatever that is, and we want to build all these things, and obviously, like, your engineers are coming to you and they're saying, Spivey, we can't do that. Like, okay, you've given us, we got 3 sprints, whatever, we got 6 weeks to build this thing, and it's just not. I just don't think we can do it, Spivey. You know what I mean? And so, like, there's all kinds of ways. Like, do we bring more people on? Do we pare down scope? Do we cut features? Like, what are some ways that you deal with those challenges? Because I think that's kind of an in the trenches kind of question. So I'm curious to hear from you as a manager how you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I per se deal with that as much at the director level. I mean, I certainly do. We certainly hear about it. We certainly talk about it. It's not as though, but I'm not in every sprint planning meeting. I am generally not. I manage a lot of teams, and so it's not as though I'm in every single one of them on the ground saying, "Hey, this X, Y, and Z." I'm sort of looking at a larger holistic project of what we're trying to accomplish. But I have certainly dealt with that for the entirety of my career. If you've ever been in software, you've had to
It's a
estimate
hard
work
thing.
and how
Yeah, it
to
comes up.
deliver against it.
Yeah.
Tell us
It's a
how big
very
this is. It's an extra large. No, it's a small.
When I
Okay.
was
Why did you ask?
really, when I was really early on in career,
some
one
challenges
of the
there.
best, my first job, my best piece of advice I got was, you will go very far in this industry if you can accurately estimate how long it takes you to complete a thing. And then beyond that, if you can figure out how to mostly accurately predict how a team can do that.
Yeah.
Because that's a very hard thing to do, and it changes based on what team members are available. We get into a whole conversation about Fibonacci and T-shirts and swag, etc. To your sort of like, what do you do? Well, first is definitely not to add more people. That's not my default. There's a whole book that stands the test of time called the Mythical Man Month.
That's
That will
right.
tell you that when you add people to a late project, it just makes the project later.
Mhm.
So I generally tend to stand by that argument. So it's
Yeah.
more of having a conversation with the business, whatever our business partners are, design partners, basically just rallying the group around you and saying, okay, what makes sense based on what we know? Today, we know we can do X, Y, Z in X amount of time. If we crop this, that might get us on time. If we downscale that might get us to time.
Yeah.
Can you live without that screen? Can you live without that service? Can we add that to a fast follow or a phase two? Really, it's about partner management. It's in working with your partners to find what's acceptable and what's acceptable to the business. And I've always found that as long as you are there's sort of two important things to it. Is as long as you're very transparent with your partners and cooperative with your partners, you bring them close and you take them along for the ride. They're often very amenable to, like, okay, we know what's going on here, and yes, we'll pivot, we'll make the adjustments needed to make this happen because ultimately we want it to happen. The other one, and I told this to my team, I still tell it to my teams, it's one of the pieces of advice I stand by the hardest, which is speak about it early and often. I think at any management level, it's very hard to figure out when, like, if you're at a 2-week sprint and someone tells you on the day before the sprint ends that, like, I'm not going to make it, I got nothing done and I've been blocked, I'm having all these issues, there's nothing that I can do for you at that point in time.
Yeah.
You have hurt yourself and you have hurt the team, and there's nothing I can do to help you because we've already exhausted the time. If you had told me at the start of the sprint, hey, I think this is going to be a challenge, this X, Y, and Z might be a problem, I can find you people to sit with, I can talk about scope, we can get you educated. There's so many things that I, as a leader, am empowered to be able to do early to help you. And even more at a director level, where I'm looking in projects in 6-month windows.
Yeah.
If I'm going 4 months down a line through a major project and my whole team is telling me everything's roses, and then we get down into like the month of testing and they're like, well, it's all borked and not working, there's not much I can do to help at that point. But if you had sort of told me early, hey, Spivey, the scope is too big, whatever, like you just said, that's a whole separate slew of things that I can do to help, that we can have a conversation on and that we can work through to make sure everyone's successful. And ultimately, my job is just to make you successful.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm fine with people telling me that I'm wrong or the project's wrong or whatever it might be, so that we have an honest dialogue about making sure we get it figured out. Because I really don't want people selling me bill of bad goods just because they're afraid I'll get angry. I won't. My job's to help you be successful. I want you to be successful.
Yeah.
So like, help me help you do that.
Yeah.
I
Tell
also
me
am
if it's a problem. I want to know if it's a problem
Right.
ahead of time, early on, right?
And as a
Yep.
developer, I am firmly in favor of keep your receipts as well.
Oh yeah.
Like a lot of times if I know there's a problem coming, I will write a very detailed email about it so that I can say, no, I told you about this. Everyone was aware of this. And, good managers will be and directors will say, okay, I've been warned. I know, here's what we can do about it. But that also protects you as an engineer.
We also have to be sort of clear though, that like, that's true for us here in this moment, but for the folks who are listening and thinking about this, there's probably a few folks who are like, well, I could never tell my boss those things.
Yeah.
And that really does come back to the trust factor we talked about, right?
It does. That's true.
Actively work to build trust with your group. These are things that are not hard, and people will want to come to you and have those conversations. If you're the one that flies off the handle as that manager because they're angry about whatever and constantly losing the cool, then you're not building trust. And then folks really aren't going to want to be proactively coming to you. And that's kind of then on you for like not building that trust with them. And it's a hard thing to do.
I've worked on those teams before too, where everyone is doing the contractor 2-week thing, like 2 sprints. When are you going to be done? 2 sprints. And how's it coming? It's great. Everything's fine. They'll go so far as to be like, it's done. And you're like, but it's not done. Yes, it is. I'm like, oh, but it's not done. and it's a really frustrating position to be in because especially, if you're an Angular developer, you're almost certainly the last developer to touch any project. And that means you're the easiest to throw under the bus for it. So why did you take so long? Oh, well, like nobody did any of the things they were supposed to do getting up to where I am. That's why it took me so long. Nope, you were last. Sorry, you ruined the whole thing. And it's really frustrating.
I think Clara's had some experiences. Maybe a little bit.
I did a lot of contract work too. So like, yeah, I've seen a lot. It's like, oh gosh, it's ugly out there.
We've all consulted once or twice and seen a few things.
I mean, like when you have to email your boss to be like, that the production server credentials are being stored in plain text on the HTML server. Like, I don't know. You have to tell people stuff like that. And then they respond with, oh, we know. It's like, oh, cool. I'm going to cover my butt on this then. Yeah. But yeah. I mean, I think to the people that are listening, if you aren't in a good management position, you are not alone. This happens all the time because management is a skill just like anything else. Like, and people have to learn, and some people are willing to learn and some people are not. And so, Spivey, what do you feel like makes, like, what are the ingredients that you need to, like, if you're like, I think I'm going to be a good manager, like what traits have you found beneficial in that realm?
I think a big one, because every engineer in your org is going to be that beautifully unique butterfly that you just want to embrace. But life treats everyone very differently, and everyone has family. The ingredient list is huge. And so one of the things that's so critical is listening skills, being able to stop trying to talk over someone and let them talk to you so that you can hear, and maybe sometimes they'll say things and you actually go, so I hear that. What I think I'm also hearing is, and you kind of start to dig down a little deeper and you start to kind of get to the root of what might be really going on, which then can kind of help you. You can kind of go, hey, kind of sounding like you're burning out here a little bit. Why don't we take a little off your plate for a bit and let you do whatever that is, which kind of leads into the next one, which is that level of empathy, is being able to get out of your own life problems and the stuff that like challenges you every day, and go put yourself in their shoes and say, if I was sitting in their shoes with this kind of stuff coming at me and some of the things that I know because I'm listening to them, how would I be feeling right now? And if you can start to kind of understand what those feelings are a little bit, then you can start to like pull back or push or whatever it might need to be, because sometimes it means you need to push a little harder on them, or sometimes it means you need to pull back a little bit and say, I understand, let's have a slightly separate conversation. And that's a really, really hard skill. Like I don't want this to come off to anyone listening as though I've mastered all of these things. I have failed plenty of times. I have learned tons of lessons. I have had people in my org that I did not do the best service of, and it does hurt. Like that's the thing that I don't enjoy. I want everyone in my org to feel heard, feel like they've been able to be successful, and I have not always gotten that right, because it is a hard skill, and everyone that comes to you with such unique differences that there are sometimes it's just not going to work. I think that comes to the third one, which is again back to what we talked about, that sort of willingness to go learn. Like even if you're dealing with someone really challenging, go read another book or do some more research or do some homework about, like, these are kind of the things that I see. Are there things that I could do differently to help this individual, right? Some folks do really well with being told they need to keep a written plan, and then that'll help them stay organized in their thoughts. Some people are like, hey, you should have sticky notes everywhere. There's like some people, for example, even just in one-on-ones, some people like really structured one-on-ones with documents, agendas, here's what we're discussing, and they want to kind of nail through that. Others like to free flow it and just want to have a conversation with you. And so learning where they fit on that sort of spectrum on things. Like I personally like a free flowy one-on-one. I like to, how was your weekend? What have you been up to? Kind of build that connection. And with an agenda, I always feel like too limited by that. But that's for me, right? And the one-on-one's not just for me, it's also for the person I'm with. And so having to find that balance with that person and being able to do those things, not just sticking to here's the formula I think works, but constantly blending that formula.
Spivey, how much have you done any reading on like emotional intelligence and stuff like that? Like we were talking about books earlier, but have you read any like EI type books?
I have a bunch, and I have definitely dealt with differing levels of emotional intelligence. And heck, sure, probably people have told me I have varying levels of emotional intelligence. But yeah, I have done a bunch of books on that. That is a very complicated subject that I think would lead this. We would talk about that for the next 2 hours about how that impacts things, especially about how the dynamics of personal life impact that so significantly on a week and day by day basis.
Yeah. I went through a training program to teach little kids how to make art when I was in grad school. And one of the parts of the teaching program was basically calling out the different styles of learning, which, I mean, it's like, that's a little simplistic, but I think we are in a society where we sort of have very narrow definitions of what success looks like, what performance looks like, how you're allowed to do things, how you're allowed to achieve things. And really, if you look at humans, like for myself, I learn better I got to get my hands on it. I can watch a video. I might fall asleep, so I'll probably watch it on the treadmill. And then I need to just actually try to do something. I need to fail at it, right? To actually learn how to make it work. Other people can just read a blog post and they're like, I know how to do this. And that is weird to me, but that works for other people. And it's the same thing with like just these interpersonal relationships too. Learning to kind of understand how to predict people, I think, is important. And that is not always with science. That's like doing the witching thing with water where like, I think I get you. I think I get your motivations. But
Spivey, we're coming down to the end of this, and I think we'd be maybe doing our listeners a disservice if we didn't talk about the elephant in the room. So tell me how you think about, as a director of engineering at a large company, how do you guys think about AI, how that impacts developer productivity, how that impacts kind of longevity for engineering, and kind of, we don't need to do any sort of like big predictions here. I'm not looking for that. I'm just curious in terms of like, the landscape has certainly changed and the job has changed over the last, let's just say, year or two. The tools that we have available to us have changed, that may or may not have positive or negative impacts on velocity or development productivity or these kinds of things. I think we'll continue to see kind of that impact continue to roll out into this career, and I'm certain that into your career as well. So tell us a little bit about how you guys are thinking about it at Cap One, and how you guys are using it or not using it. Kind of what are some things that you are really bearish on, or kind of things that you're kind of thinking, hey, this isn't quite ready for mainstream? Or yeah, I'd love to hear just your general thoughts coming from more of a director kind of leadership style, approach. I'm sure that Jay and Laura and myself have lots of opinions on AI tooling and
It's like a
developer
couple.
tooling, and how to build with AI, how to use AI into build AI into applications or whatever that is. But I really want to kind of stay focused. Like, let's not talk about like chatbots. Like, let's talk about like how AI is affecting organizations, and how you guys are thinking about it at Cap One. I'd love to hear from you on that.
Well, I don't really want to speak for Cap One. We
I
do,
guess, yeah, yourself. Then yeah,
yeah,
sure.
I mean, Capital One is embracing AI. We have a Copilot, and there's a lot of belief in the power of AI at Capital One, and we're doing some really amazing things. We have a significant number of patents, so there is a lot of AI occurring at Capital One that you can go read about if you go check LinkedIn and whatnot. There's lots of great stuff about what we're doing publicly. From my perspective as a leader, Capital One aside, because I don't want this to infer any sort of reference to what they are driving towards.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think the first step is to ignore everything that you read on LinkedIn, because they are all thought bleeding about what AI is and is not. It's not, it's going to take your job. It's not going to take your job, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
I have played with it a ton. I have written plenty of hobby projects with Copilot and these different models and Claude, and I've just played around with it a ton just to sort of get a sense for what I think it's going to do. My general thoughts are it's not going to take your job. I think that because I've been doing this a really long time, and I've heard that statement far too many times. Oh, whatever is going to be dead and you're going to have no work. Engineers will always be around. I think AI is only going to increase the number of them that are needed. Where and how that's applied, I think, is the question that's still being very TBD'd. I do very much see AI as a potential accelerator. Now, I've read some interesting articles about how it actually slows teams down because they accelerate the initial writing of things, but because it doesn't operate terribly well once you get very large. It's great for like vibe coding the sort of starter, but once you get into complex systems, you can't shove enough of that in there at this point in time for it to like cohesively make changes that make sense and do it well. And so you then spend a ton of time reviewing the outputs. And like, I certainly, even smaller projects were like, I don't know where you went with that one and how many times you had to like cancel a prompt, roll back, rethink your prompt to get it to go, to then go forward again. And so you're like doing this back forward thing constantly. But when it does it, and it does it well, like the number of unit tests that I wrote went up dramatically because it found all these corner cases.
You're like writing unit tests.
And I hate it.
Cool, right? Exactly. Like that kind of stuff is great. So like, let's knock that out. So I think as we learn how to better use it and how it becomes smarter, I see a lot of opportunity for it accelerating. Justin Searles, if you haven't heard of him, go look up his ng-conf talk from a long time back. It's called Scratching an Itch, I believe is what it was called. It's still my favorite ng-conf talk of all time. It is such an amazing talk. I still follow him and I really like him because he's kind of spicy and has really hard opinions that he just fires out there. And he had a really good article recently called Full Breadth Developer. And I think that article to me, and I will make sure I get it for the show notes for folks. It is a really, really good first take on what I think is going to ultimately make engineers successful, which is, and I've thought this for a long time, having come from being a CTO, is that a really good engineer is also a very good product person. So they don't just think about the code, but they think about what this means for a customer. What's the outcome that I'm trying to accomplish? What does this mean to my end user? And the folks that can do that can now harness the power of AI to kind of help accelerating them get there and have better partnerships with product and design to like put these ideas out and put them together quickly to get products into folks' hands
Mhm.
I think that's really where we'll see that evolution of engineers is AI is just going to kind of enhance these folks. We're still going to need a ton of engineers, even if it's prompt engineers. And we're going to ultimately all sort of become semi-product engineer hybrids, which is not a bad thing towards a sort of this future towards what's better for us as consumers and as customers. And
Mhm.
I've always pushed my teams, think about the end user. That's the beauty of being front end engineers. We're kind of forced into that, generally speaking. We're like back end folks often don't really get that exposure. We're always like, what's it like to click through this thing? What's the user
Right.
experience?
Why
And
is
like,
the button there?
yeah, why is it that color? That's kind of strange. Like, so that kind of stuff will start to be
Yeah.
really, really critical to at least the UI engineers and full stack engineers that are listening.
That,
I think the one.
Oh, I was going to say my experience has been exactly that, which is using AI to write code. I have had to definitely put on more of a product hat to make sure that what I'm doing is what I'm actually it's been helpful to help sort of refine those requirements and honestly break up the work into logical like chunks, because that's hard to do as well. But go ahead, Jay.
The one thing I was going to note on like the leadership side with AI is kind of, Spivey was talking about like, yeah, we're not sure if it's actually making us quicker or if it's ultimately making us slower because of the, we're backloading the work kind of thing, right? Which you don't see at the start is something that I've started doing internally is measuring us. Now, not on an IC level, because I don't want to measure any individual person. That's not how my team operates. But from a human versus bot level, I wrote some executors that run on a schedule during our CI. So at the end of every week, it'll go and calculate a bunch of metrics from like our GitHub pull requests and our number of releases and stuff like that, and then graph it so we can see. And I'm continuing to refine those to try and find some metrics that like have a bit more meaning. Because like, yeah, number of pull requests doesn't necessarily mean anything if there's a bunch of back and forth on those bot pull requests. So I'm like refining them still, but like as a leader, to know if this is working for you or not, you need to have some kind of an understanding of if it's working. And so you have to measure something. So like what we've started doing is just like measuring certain things of the human versus bot and then graph those over time. And we're not trying to have the humans beat the bots or the bots beat the humans. It's about, are both graphs going up? Or is one graph going up and one like plummeting or something like that, right? Like that's not what you want, right? Because you don't want to just like, drastically increase your bot PRs, but then all your humans are ever doing is sitting there like
Reading
leaving
bot
review
PRs.
comments on PRs all day, right? Like that's not a success metric. So you want them both to be either like steady or moving up kind of thing, right? So you get more efficient over time. So that's the idea, is that you get more efficient. So just something
It's
to
early days. We're
throw
still
there.
learning a lot, and there's going to be a
Yeah.
lot to learn over the coming weeks and years. I think there will be an evolution, but exactly what it looks like today, I'm not scared for engineers' jobs. I know that there are folks laying off and saying our company is now doing 50% coding through this, but I
Yeah.
also see a lot of hiring. And I think some of it's hard because there's correlation causation, right? We have
Yes.
a lot of market conditions right now that are not attuned to a lot of hiring. And so
Yeah.
just keep these things in mind when you see these fanciful headlines about X, Y, and Z.
Well, and
I also
you have to
don't wanna
remember,
work-
like nobody hires punch card operators anymore, right?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
and the punch card operators learned how to use early computers, and then like I don't know, I wrote
Evolved.
Visual Basic in the beginning of my career, and I don't do that anymore. I lost my Visual Basic developer job. I'm so sad.
We're all engineers. Your job's just to keep learning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so on the topic of jobs, a little birdie told me that you're a great person to work for.
Well,
Is
if you've
Birdie on this
heard
call right
that
now?
and you would like to be one of those people, I actually have 2 job postings coming up soon for a senior and a lead level position to come work in my team in CreditWise. As of now, unfortunately, for those listening that are not in the Washington, D.C. area, it is not a remote friendly position. We are a McLean-based company, for at least for my teams. So for folks that are in the Washington, D.C. area, if you are interested, please do ping me. I will have those positions. You can find me on LinkedIn at James Spivey. Just search for DC area Capital One. You'll find me. Feel free to ping me, reach out to me, and I'm happy to have a chat with you about it. Or you can find me on Bluesky. I think I'm spivey.wtf.
I also heard that you might be at ng-conf.
I will be at ng-conf. So you will find me wandering around the halls at ng-conf with a Capital One shirt on, so you can't miss me. I'm a swag guy, as Laura knows, so you
Oh,
always
yeah.
find me swag. So
I'm still like you got to get the Capital One Hawaiian shirt. Like that's
they don't have one, although I have
Mhm.
put a couple little things in people's ears about getting one. It's kind of crucial. So
Awesome.
yeah, exactly. It makes the most sense, honestly. So, and for the listeners, if you haven't yet got your tickets to ng-conf, they are still on sale. It is in the Baltimore area, October, 17th through the 19th.
17, 19? I don't know.
I do this every time because I can't remember dates.
It
Okay,
is-
sessions are the 17th and the 18th. If you want to sign up for one of the workshops, which are an additional ticket, they're October 15th through the 16th. ng-conf is also partnering with JSConf at the same
Oof.
location. That is taking place the 2 days before, and there is a deal if you buy tickets for both. You should send your whole team, or if you can get there yourself, that is fantastic. I will be there. Spivey will be there. Brian will be there. Jay will be staying in Canada.
Yes. Yeah, I will not be leaving my borders right now.
Don't blame you. But yeah, definitely. And Spivey's always happy to talk to folks. I'm always happy to talk to folks. I'm talking for you, Spivey, but I've seen you at conferences, so I know that like you got some friends. So, but yeah, so definitely do that. But are there any? Okay, you said Bluesky, LinkedIn, but the best way is in person at ng-conf.
pretty much, yeah. You'll find me wandering in the hallways for sure there.
Definitely.
Cool,
Awesome.
man. Well, yeah, thanks, Spivey. Thank you for your time, man. Thanks for bringing your experience and kind of sharing all of that. I also, I think I generally vibe with your like the AI scare stuff. I think that there's a lot of things out there that you could read, or you could see signals maybe that have some correlation, maybe not direct causation,
Mhm.
and related to hiring and all that kind of stuff. You know, there's a lot of factors that come into that. It's very complex, and so I just appreciate your leadership, man, in the Angular community. Appreciate your leadership at Capital One, and thanks for coming on the podcast today and sharing with us about your experience and kind of how to get into leading people and working, kind of wearing that hat of also being an engineer. And I think you're really right about the product side of things. You know, I think oftentimes we think, oh, I just, pick up a ticket, write a code, and I'm done. And I think some of the best folks I've worked with are engineers that are able to also spend a lot of time thinking about the product and the goal, and really work closely with leadership and project management and all of that to really build a product that people want to use. And so, yeah, I just want to appreciate you, and thanks for coming on the podcast. And for the listener, thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe. Like Laura said, go to ng-conf, get your tickets, and we'll see you there. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Fun.
Hey, everyone. Thanks, Spivey.